Hi, and welcome to this chat about the astrology of January 2024. I'm Gina, and I'm here with my beloved friend and fellow astrologer, Corin. Hi, Corin.
Hi, Gina.
I'm so grateful to have you here today, and I'll put all the contact information for you in the description if folks would like to learn more about working with you. Today, we're together to discuss the astrology of the month of January 2024, and this talk will be relevant for all signs, so we hope you enjoy. First, we're going to discuss Mercury stationing direct on January 2nd. So for this, I'm looking here, I'll pull up for our viewers, Corin, the chart for January 2nd. I just relegated them all with Aries in the first house just to make these four charts sort of easy to read and have some consistency before them. But I think that the actual dates and times for Mercury direct.
Right. I think it's like late at night on the 1st, right?
Yes, exactly. So January 1st, around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at 22 degrees of Sag. And then on January 13th, Mercury moves back into Capricorn. And then on the 20th, we're out of shadow. So I feel like we're finally starting to get the full story now about this Mercury retrograde, cycle that really began in December. And it's really not until Mercury stations direct that you sort of start to put the story together.
Yes, absolutely. It's like the ultimate Monday, right? Even though it's a Tuesday, it's technically a Tuesday or late on a Monday. But that January 2nd for everyone every year is the day they go back to work. Everything starts again after the holiday period, and to have Mercury going direct that day is kind of like yep, wake her up. It's back to everything that you put on hold for the last week or two.
Yes, right. Definitely like an end of vacation vibe, and just that new start, everything sort of beginning to move forward again. It's kind of an interesting signature with Capricorn and Sagittarius being involved. I feel like they're such different signs. Like when I think about Mercury and Capricorn, it's very like, let's go over these plans again. It sort of feels very down to business. Whereas Mercury in Sagittarius is kind of couldn't be more opposite. It feels very like, oh, I'm so excited to tell you everything I'm thinking. Maybe talking too much and without much planning. So I'm curious to see how that will manifest for people in terms of the things that might surface during this time.
Yes, that Mercury in Capricorn, in generally Mercury retrograde, I feel like there's so much now about Mercury's going retrograde, lock your doors and, get your children safe, just a little bit histrionics about Mercury retrograde. And I tend to take a more measured approach to it. Things can, the classic, things can go wrong, don't make big purchases. And I think during this Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, like practical things did seem, at least from my end and others that I've spoken with, there seemed to be a lot of technological snafus or miscommunications, but it's not necessarily that Mercury's traveling backwards, right? It's just an apparent backwards motion. It's that sort of your unconscious is coming forward, and it's always a great time to revise things, renew things, pay more attention to things, back up your data. Your communications are not working as they usually do. They're working in a more subconscious way. That's how I tend to look at Mercury retrograde. So the Mercury direct is an opportunity to take some of the things that have come up, any frustrations or any kind of unusual communications with people, or just move forward I have a picture of a diving board, just dive forward with everything you've collected over the previous 3 weeks.
I love that. And I think just one aspect of it that I would add to it is I noticed a lot of folks having a hard time with scheduling during this December period, which sort of makes sense with any Mercury retrograde along those same themes you were thinking. Just it can be communication snafus and challenges in communication, and sometimes that's just having a difficulty finding a time to meet, or having to revise the place where you're meeting or how you're meeting, or so perhaps in January those plans that were delayed because you couldn't actually get together, now you're actually finding the time and space to make those things happen. Also, it's interesting that Jupiter is stationing direct right around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like that's providing some more like practical support on that material level, sort of for being able to move forward now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that Mercury is in Jupiter's sign when it goes direct. And I was reading a book by Erin Sullivan on retrograde. I have a book that for a long time of hers called Retrograde Planets. She actually just passed away a little while ago. Wonderful writer, and her writing on Mercury retrograde is pretty deep and provides a really comprehensive look on that cycle. And there's one sentence from there that she wrote: "We discover that life, like art, is discovery, not design." She wrote that about Mercury retrograde periods, and I think that especially applies to Sagittarius, that Mercury retrograde is about discovery, and when Mercury goes direct again, we can take, that sense of what's been discovered and move forward with it. It really does feel like a fresh start to the year that Mercury's direct on the second day or the first night of the new year.
It'll really feel like a new year. That's always nice when that happens. Like some years it's a good time actually to set resolutions. I'm not really like always one for resolutions, but I think it's nice when astrologically it lines up with being intentional in a certain way, because we all do function on this calendar, so we might as well make use of it when it aligns. It will feel like the beginning on the second.
Yes, it will. And Mars is right there too, right? Mercury is right near Mars when it goes through.
Yes.
An extra oomph.
Also, I don't ever want to neglect some of the outer planets. And there was something about this signature that made me think about Saturn and Pisces. I feel like we're working on some things right now. We're sort of disciplining some things that have been difficult to discipline. And a lot of folks I know are sort of working on trying to grab onto some goals and grasp a practical approach to progress. And this may be a good time to tap into those energies. This might be a moment where we're getting some movement in some really practical ways. And that just supports, anything else that's going on in the chart that's trying to do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we talk about the new moon in Capricorn later on, that certainly has a bearing on what you just said in terms of providing some counter structure to Saturn and Pisces.
Yeah, well, and maybe we can go ahead and move into that. I think that we might be just about ready to do that.
Okay.
Did you have anything else in the Mercury stationing direct?
No, I think that we covered a lot.
And I think it'll be interesting whereas actually that whole time in Capricorn feels a bit serious, but then this little glip over in Sag, there may be some really interesting, something exciting might come in, or you might get some really big like flash of insight to pay attention to. Yeah,
you can take that Promethean fire forward into the new year until Mercury goes retrograde again on April 1st, I believe, which will be a great April Fool's Day.
Yes, I guess the only other thing that I had here was just a couple things to be careful of. You did a great job of covering just with Mercury retrograde in general. I would say for the signs that Mercury in Sagittarius, be careful not to talk too much, or not even retrograde, direct. Mercury in these signs through January. Sometimes Mercury in Sag can so enthusiastic and excited, and that's a wonderful thing. But sometimes if it moves too fast, that's something to watch out for. Maybe not being careful who you talk to. And then I would say Mercury in Capricorn, be careful sort of not to overly plan or getting lost in that process too much. But I think that there is something really powerful about these two being together this cycle.
You know, it's a great point about Mercury and Sag, just watching what you say and who you say it to. It's very good thing to keep in mind, Mercury retrograde in Sag and still in its shadow period in Sagittarius.
It's just so much optimism, and it's just so much sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the extreme optimist signature, isn't it? Mercury and Sag, and that could could boomerang around to bite you in the butt if you're missing something, right? If you have this grand picture, which is what Sagittarius gives you, this sweeping picture, and an ideal that you can work towards, but perhaps you might not be considering some of the details in that view. It's good to keep your head about you with Mercury and Sag while it still has the retrograde energy around it.
Very true. I feel like it's kind of a hard time for that Sag energy in the world right now. You know, and for Sages, and for people with strong Sag signatures, it's something about the energies that are feeling a little different, and so maybe this will be a good moment for some of that to find a place to gain a bit of ground, take root a little. Some of those more positive, optimistic energies can sort of win for once. Okay, next let's talk about the new moon in Capricorn on January 11th. So that new moon occurs on January 11th around 7 p.m. Eastern Time at 20 degrees Capricorn.
Wait, Gina, I'm sorry. I have it as 7 a.m. You said 7 p.m. Is it? Do I have it wrong?
I think maybe you're correct. Perhaps it is 7 a.m. That's great. Yeah, I'll check that out. I'm sure you're right. And again, I just pulled the chart here with the Aries in the first house just to kind of make it easy for everyone to see. But we're looking at what here is in the 10th house with Capricorn, with the sun and the moon together at about 20 degrees. And Mars is in this house. Pluto is wrapping up the transit. So it's a busy time in Capricorn. And I feel like it has been for years, really. There's been a lot in Capricorn. So whenever we have a new moon in Capricorn, I think it's good to bring in some new energy, new start energy to this house.
Yes. I mean, it almost feels like, I know that the new moon in Capricorn happens this time of year each year, but it feels like a finale in a way for Pluto moving out of Capricorn. It's just, there's that pileup of planets in Capricorn, and the new moon energy is all about planting seeds, right, and making plans for the future, and also about endings as well, endings and beginnings. And this very much looks like a configuration that is that borderline between one time and another time. For me, I know we'll talk more about Pluto in Capricorn, but gosh, so much concentrated Capricorn energy.
You know, especially in whatever life area this rules in your chart, if people know where Capricorn falls in their chart, I think anybody would be hard-pressed to not notice there being a lot of activity in that life area in the last 3 to 4 years.
Yes. Yeah, it's heavy. It's a great point about new moons and full moons in general, too. It's also is where are they following your chart? Which house are they following your chart? And as you mentioned, there's been a story unfolding in that area of your chart since 2019 because so much has gone on in Capricorn. And this is this the end of that story? Or, I mean, to me, it feels like the Capricorn story is drawing to an end. But also the positive aspects of a Capricorn new moon, it's giving a lot of focus on what your resources are, what your goals are, what your commitments are. What are those things that you're bringing forward into the new year? Even though we manufacture the beginning of a new year, astrologically, like the new year doesn't start on January 1st, but for most people, they think of it as a blank slate. And with a new moon in Capricorn happening so close to the beginning of the year, it really, to me, feels like a time of really just doing a catalog of your resources and how you're going to use those moving forward to achieve your goals. And there's a really beautiful trine between Jupiter and Mars on that day, which gives an extra shot of energy to that planning process. You don't even have to actively plan on a new moon, but certainly it's good to plant seeds around the new moon.
The moon is trining Uranus in that house at the same time. So that's adding a little surprise. It brings some surprises and excitement into this. If we didn't have enough already, Capricorn can be a bit stable. So maybe it's kind of good sometimes to have a bit of a shake up from something over there with Uranus in the mix. It's like really the plan is in place and now we're moving on it. When we have the new moon here too, it's really just adding to that.
Mhm. Mhm. And that new moon does square the nodes. So when I see planets squaring the nodes in a natal chart, for instance, often those planets can really speak to the nodes being people view them in different ways, right? I see them as sort of where you're coming from and where you're going to. Definitely something related to the story of your life and direction, your life's direction. When planets square the nodes, it feels like an important new moon. And it's important for people to look at where those nodes are in their chart, because that Aries Libra nodal story is unfolding over the next 19 months or however long.
Absolutely. I mean, and with Pluto there as well, and just with the moon being involved, I feel like there's definitely, the whole thing is not without emotion. You know, there's sort of something really deep going on here. I think we're really wrapping up some powerful cycles that were very transformative for people. So this 2 weeks following this new moon is a great time to set some new intentions for the 6 months ahead, the year ahead, especially with the timing around the calendar, and just be thinking about what you're done with and what kinds of things have you been wrestling with in the last few years that you can sort of put down now and move on to another story. And some of this stuff might be really old, really deep, really traditional, ancestral even.
That's such a great word for Capricorn, ancestral, deep, things that are carried forward from other generations even. Capricorn rules that home ground. I mean, the Capricorn Cancer aspect, axis in general, rules where we've come from and ancestral lands and inheritances.
It's a great transition you're providing here, I think, to move us into Pluto in Aquarius, which is our third chart we're going to talk about today. Are you ready to move to that? Do you have anything else to add to this new moon chart?
No, I think I'm good on the new moon and very primed to talk about Pluto going into Aquarius.
Oh my gosh, I know, because really, talking about Pluto in Aquarius, to start by discussing the end of Pluto in Capricorn makes a tremendous amount of sense. And just as you were talking, I was thinking about, wow, it really has been heavy, hasn't it? Because Capricorn is so heavy and so ancestral and so deep and so old anyway. And then you bring Pluto in there. And I guess we're still in the sort of Saturn-ruled signs. There's certainly still a heaviness to Aquarius, but sometimes you're just ready for something new. You're just ready for new problems. There's still going to be problems, but I'm just going to take some different problems now.
And poor Pluto's always associated with dismantling things, right? And sort of the grand, the phoenix energy of everything goes to ashes and then gets reborn. But really, it's also, transformation is an exciting concept, and Pluto does transform what sign it moves through. It was last in Aquarius during the U.S. War of Independence and during the French Revolution. That's the last time it was in Aquarius. It gives you a flavor for, perhaps, not that we're headed into a time of massive revolution, but that's its energy, isn't it? Of just, sometimes taking things down to the studs so that something new can be reborn, and with a sense of rebellion, and Aquarius being a rebellion, contrarian, going against the grain sign. That's where Pluto's headed for the next 20 years.
Yeah. So we're going to go real deep into those energies. And it's interesting how at the beginning of a Pluto transit, it would actually be impossible to understand it, right? Like the consciousness where we are at this point can't quite comprehend the way in which this will change our lives, sort of the same way that whatever life area Capricorn rules in your chart has been transformed over the last 18 years or however long it's been. I think it entered in 2008. Pluto entered Capricorn. And so to think about this next area, wherever Aquarius rules for us as individuals and then also as a collective, we can't imagine the wildness of what's about to happen. But it will be just as monumental and unfamiliar, whatever's about to happen here in Aquarius.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's hard to look forward and be able to guess what's going to happen. And Pluto doesn't operate that way anyway. Pluto, in my experience, as someone who's just gone through some pretty heavy Pluto transits, I think anyone who has late cardinal points in their chart, and I have quite a few, anything from 27 to the end of the sign in Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, Aries, you've had a front seat to Pluto energy, what it does, how unexpected it is. You could see it coming, but you still don't know how it's going to unfold. And I think that's absolutely right in Aquarius, which is an unpredictable sign to begin with. One theory I have, and I don't know if this would be borne out, but is that we've seen so much wealth and power concentrated in certain very small groups during particularly the last part of Pluto and Capricorn, and particularly since the pandemic happened, wealth has been really concentrated in a few sort of limited pockets, and power has been concentrated as well. I wonder if Pluto in Aquarius will be a time that unravels, those pockets of wealth and power unravel and are more equitably distributed, or however you view it, as being equitable or not. I'm not trying to assign a value, but that will be unwound, and that power becomes more diffuse amongst a greater number of people. So that's one theory I have about.
Yeah, it's amazing how Aquarius is really sort of with the people but apart from the people at the same time. You know, I think of people who have a lot of Aquarius in their chart as like they really love people sort of in theory, you know, but like in day-to-day experience, they spend a lot of time alone and are pretty removed and really only have a few people that they share everything with and everything. But at the same time, love people really, and very like humanitarians and very optimistic about the future. And I think that we're seeing that play out with technology as well, right? And we've seen this already with the little dips into Aquarius that we've had with Pluto, some of the AI things coming in, and like energy around being together but apart. And does that help to sort of diffuse, spread out some of the funds and the money? It's like everyone's kind of doing their own thing a little bit more. We're all together but apart. I feel like the creator economy growing within that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we did get that flavor. We got that little tip of the tongue taste of Pluto in Aquarius last spring, from about late March into, was it early June? Pluto was in Aquarius, and
it was mid-June, late March to mid-June.
Yeah, such a brief glimpse, and it seems to have absolutely coincided with AI kind of exploding all over the business world and our personal lives. And AI has been around a while, but it certainly rose to consciousness late last year and seemed in tandem with Pluto going into Aquarius. But then once Pluto came back into Capricorn, I feel it's really been grinding in these last few degrees of Capricorn. It just is such intense energy. The events in the Middle East bear that out. That was very Plutonian time. I think Pluto's stationed around that time. Right now it's at the anorectic degree of Capricorn, which is the last degree of Capricorn. And the last degree of any sign is a very tense and urgent place where things take on special urgency, and it just is not comfortable energy. And we'll have that for the first 3 weeks of January. It's the very end of Capricorn. And I know that probably some people listening to this have had very challenging experiences in this last portion of the year, and that is going to shift. Of course, there's many other planetary energies going on at the same time. It's not just all about Pluto, but that Pluto in Aquarius does feel like an absolute game changer in terms of the era that we're in, to me.
It's going to feel really different, especially, it really will. And I think, yes, once we get into late January and early February, and Pluto will stay in Aquarius now until September 1st, and then move back into Capricorn. So that's really a pretty long time. We should get a sense again for the feeling. But then November 19th, Pluto will move into Aquarius, where it will stay until March of 2043.
So that Pluto and Capricorn story will have a coda, right, next fall, right before the election, or I don't know if the U.S. election. I think it coincides, or maybe it moves around the same, or moves back into Aquarius around the time of the election, which is an interesting
November 19th. That's right around there. It's got to be, yeah.
Yeah, but that story, as you mentioned, the Capricorn place in our charts, and it has definitely undergone a transformation, and that is a story that still has remnants to that will be revisited in the fall, and
right.
Get a long stretch of what Pluto in Aquarius feels like. And I was looking to see what had happened last spring when Pluto had a few weeks in Aquarius, like what was happening in the news. Germany committed to not using nuclear power anymore, which I found was a pretty interesting event for Pluto in Aquarius, stepping back. And there were some other smaller things, but that's one that really jumped out at me.
I would imagine that during this Pluto in Aquarius time, we will have some major transformations when it comes to work and across the globe. I guess what I'm thinking about is the way in which this is really sort of a new era in terms of work and the way we all interact. I feel like the Industrial Revolution, the last 200 years was one piece. And now these next 200 years, it's not just a new chapter in the history book, it's sort of a new unit. And it's like all those office spaces will be broken down and become studios for creators.
Pluto and Capricorn, Capricorn rules money and real estate to an extent. And so what real estate has been at historically high prices for the last few years, and I'm curious how Pluto in Aquarius will have an effect on that world, the value of land. And I think what you said about not corporate real estate, commercial real estate, switching over to being studios or more creative spaces or even residential spaces will absolutely be a part of this. I'm looking forward to that. I've been waiting for that moment.
It is just it's a remarkable transit, and you can see from the kinds of things that we're tossing around that we know it'll be wild. We know enough to know that we don't know how exactly this will all manifest, but it's just so futuristic. It's so the way in which I keep coming back to the technology being this thing that allows us to be apart yet together. We all kind of are wanting to show up as complete individuals, or even relationships coming into a place where instead of people wanting to come together as two halves, people wanting to come together as two wholes and unite in a partnership as wholes rather than halves. I think about the way in which we will connect will be so different. Any message that you have that's important, get it out there. We're going to get it out there in Pluto and Aquarius.
Yeah. And coming 2025, I believe, is when Uranus moves into Gemini. So it will be, that's like two sides of the triangle. I'm sure they're going to be working in tandem just to absolutely change communication in very profound ways.
Saturn and Neptune are going to be lining up in Aries.
That's right. The summer of 2025 has some pretty wild aspects. But yeah, Pluto in Aquarius is that curtain coming up on that time, right? It's like the curtain on Act 1. It's being pulled to the side. We're going to see what's on the stage, and that play is going to be continuing for the next 2 years. Well, for Pluto will be in Aquarius for 20 years, but those other transits of its outer planet friends will be creating drama come 2025, 2026, and this seems like the first few moments of that play come late January.
Well, we'll definitely have to revisit Pluto in Aquarius because this is a very long transit, and I do worry sometimes that we don't go back to the longer, the outer planets and what's going on with the outer planets, but we're going to be trying to understand what Pluto in Aquarius looks like for the next couple of years, so we'll have to talk about it again.
Yes, I'm sure we will be.
Okay, let's talk about, if you're ready, this final lunation of the month, and we can talk about the full moon in Leo.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. So that full moon in Leo occurs at 1 p.m., around 1 p.m. on January 25th at 5 degrees of Leo or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 degrees of Leo. It's interesting. I could think back to the new moon that occurred in Leo in August of 23. That would be a good time to think back to and think about what sort of started around that time that might be coming together now. Also, I'm thinking about how we had the Venus retrograde here over the summer, and just how there was a lot with relationships, with friendships, with groups, with the way people are coming together and separating, this Libra, Aries, nodal shift. There's just sort of been a lot of energy around relationships lately, I think. And I wonder how the last 6 months that has sort of started to change in people's lives. If maybe over the summer, when we had the new moon in Leo, there was some letting go, some releasing of relationships or habits in relationships that were no longer a fit. And now might be a time where you're starting to see the payback from that. Maybe new people are coming into your life to fill the spaces that you left open over the summer. Or you're starting to realize that some of those relationships have changed because you gave them a little space to breathe. So, I mean, a full moon in Leo is a party for sure. But I also think that Leo's sort of been, it's been doing some work lately. So it's ready for this party, and it feels like a party with some new perspective.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it in relationship to the Venus retrograde cycle in Leo, but that makes absolute sense that this can be a continuation or an echo of what went on last summer, and possibly not just only letting go of people, but other people who came into our lives during the summer, or whether they're people from our past, which tends to happen during Venus retrograde. People come back around, and friendships and other relationships come back around. Where is that story stand now? Is this a fruition of new relationships that were started during the summer? It is notable that Pluto's kind of sitting right on the sun during this full moon the full moon.
Yeah.
The moon opposing the sun, that Pluto's right there, adding an extra intensity to it. So
this Pluto that just entered Aquarius.
Yeah, and the full moon in Leo is very celebratory, for sure. It is a great time to have a gathering or a party. Maybe also a good time just to check yourself a little bit that you're not completely over the top with Pluto opposing the moon. And I think that the moon's also squaring Jupiter, so there could be a tendency perhaps to overindulgence or just over-exuberance or overreaching during this full moon in Leo. That just be aware. People should be aware of that. And as always, where does it fall on your chart? Does it fall on a sensitive point? What house is it in? Where's that energy going to manifest? And say it's in your house, like it's in my 10th house of career. It's actually right on my sun at 5 Leo. Might be a good day if it's on a sensitive point. If it's on your Mercury, a good day to be communicating some grand idea. If it's on your Venus, to be expressing some great affection or making a piece of that day. But always the lunations fall in your chart.
Yes, absolutely. There is something extra potent, I think, about this particular full moon because of that Pluto there. You're right, and that could sort of swing either way. It's like, yeah, definitely be careful because Pluto can be a lot anyway, and then it's just such fresh energy with it newly in Aquarius. So there's a lot to celebrate there, but we're not used to it. Like, I almost feel like it could be like going to a party and like having a kind of drink that you've never had before. You don't know how you react to that kind of drink. You've had beer and wine, but you've never had whiskey before, and now you're drinking whiskey at this party, and you don't even know what is happening because it's a whole other thing. So you just kind of want to be careful with the people and the things that you're playing with around this time and that you're partying with and enjoying and celebrating, because they're new. I would say even if they're old, they're new. Even if this is a relationship you've been in for a while, you might be feeling a real freshness to the energy towards the end of January.
Yes, absolutely. It looks like it's a Thursday. I'd say it is a good time to gather together with people you love, although, if you can do that on a school night. I always love when I'm about to get together with or go to some social event and see that the moon's in Leo. It's like, oh, that's going to be fun. And so this being a full moon in Leo, it's definitely a fun day, fun night. But yes, have an awareness of the intensity that comes with that. So, I mean, that Mercury's in Capricorn, so it provides some counterbalancing energy. Mercury-Mars, almost a conjunction in Capricorn. It's nice to still have that Capricorn grounding. Venus is in Capricorn as well.
With Leo, too, we always have that little burst of both creativity and confidence. And that can be a really nice combination. So if you're working on something creative and something that maybe you need to share with others or show to others or be brave enough to create in the first place, a full moon in Leo could be a really interesting time because it can give that little boost, not just for creative expression, but for feeling confident enough for creative expression, too.
Absolutely.
And it's good right in the middle of winter, the end of January. It's not the time that you really think of as being a party, but there it is, especially with Pluto in Aquarius.
Yeah.
Again, ready for that freshness, ready for the new feeling, and it really will feel like a new year.
Yeah, I agree. The lineup of configurations in January, especially Pluto, makes it feel like things are new. And I mean, does Jupiter go direct? I know I'm backtracking a bit, but Jupiter goes direct on New Year's Eve, right? So
yeah, exactly. It's like New Year's Eve or the first.
So that's part of that story as well. It's just kind of a whooshing energy in January.
Yeah. I think we'll actually make some progress. December was a little slow. It was probably hard to make progress, and that can always sort of be the vibe in December. But then you add a Mercury retrograde to it, and it might have just been hard to get plans to come together or to really make steady progress with something. And I don't think January will feel that way. January should be a lot more productive, a lot easier to hit your target, less effort required to sort of move things forward. You have to do things over and over again. Oh, well, this has been so great. I'm so glad that we had the chance to talk about these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this. It helps clarify for me, too, some of the plans I'm going to make in January around some of these transits. So absolutely, for me too. I hope that we can do this again sometime. I would love that. And again, I'll put all the information in the description. But how can people find you if they want to work with you, friend? Oh, so my website is planetarybased.com, and I have an Instagram at planetarybased as well, which I post irregularly, but hopefully more regularly in the new year. And you can find all about me there.
Oh, that's great. And I'm going to post links to all of that in the description for this video as well. Thank you again. And thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful January 2024.
Yeah, happy 2024.